It's Faith, and welcome to Popping the Tab, the show where I crack open all of life's juicy little details. Hello, and welcome to Popping the Tab. I hope everyone has had a great start to their new year so far. Sorry that this episode is coming out on a Wednesday. I had a little bit of a cold this week, so I kind of pushed it off a couple days. But today's episode is a super fun one that I've been wanting to do for a while now, and that is sharing my 2024 book recap as well as my TBR for 2025. If you love reading as much as I do, then grab a bev. Today I'm drinking a pink drink, and let's get right into the episode. The first book I read in 2024 was Night Shift by Annie Crown. This was a quick read for me, but one that I actually really enjoyed. It features main female character Kendall, a notorious bookworm, and her love interest, Vincent, captain of their college's basketball team. Kendall works night shifts in their school library, and they meet because Vincent needs a poetry recommendation for a class he hates. And no surprise, they fall in love. It was pretty cheesy, but it was a good read overall. It was very sweet with a little bit of spice, and I ended up giving it a 4-star review on Goodreads. And that's going to be a trend today. I'm going to be telling you all kind of what I rated these books on Goodreads. And maybe I'll share my Goodreads account with you all on the Instagram, so you'll have to check that out. The next book I read was Fangirl Down by Tessa Bailey. The book was good, but it definitely wasn't my favorite. I mean, it's not the worst book I've read. I kind of have a love-hate relationship with Bailey's writing, but we're going to get more into that later. This book features female main character Josephine, who is a longtime fangirl and the self-proclaimed #1 fan, to be exact, of her romantic interest, Wells, who is a professional golfer. He's the PGA's bad boy, and that's Professional Golf Association, if you didn't know, and decides to go into early retirement. He low-key treats Josephine really bad at one of his tournaments in the beginning of the book, so she declares she's no longer a fan. She also runs her family's golf course, but got rid of her health insurance to pay the bills. I think that's important because I'm almost positive she's diabetic, but I don't really remember. It's been a minute since I read the book. Yeah, it's a long story. Anyway, she ends up becoming Wells's caddy and helps him repair his image while also saving her family business with the money he pays her for being his caddy. And you guessed it, they fall in love. I enjoyed reading the book, and I definitely think it's better than the second book in the series, but I'll review that one later. I did end up giving it 3 stars on Goodreads, though, because Bailey's writing is sometimes a little cringy. Next, I read Mr. Hockey by Leah Riley. There is a major theme throughout this episode, and that is that I love a good sports romance. But out of all the sports romances I've read, this would have to be my least favorite. There are certain ways that the author has the main character describe her body that just feels weird. And overall, I didn't enjoy the writing as much as some of the other books. It's not an awful book, though, so it might be worth the read, but take caution because it's not the best. The book follows Breezy, who works at a library, and Jed, who is the captain of the best team in the NHL, as well as the supposed hottest player. And guess what? Breezy just happens to be a mega fan. I mean, has posters in her house, mega fan, of Jed. I always forget his name because Jed, to me, doesn't sound super memorable. Does she tell him, though? No, she doesn't, and starts a relationship with him anyway, before telling him that she's, like, a huge fan. I cringed several times throughout the read, but I did make it through. However, I gave the book a 2-star rating on Goodreads. There were several times, especially during the spicier moments of the book, where I wanted to close my eyes and hide under a bed and just never read another book again because I just detested the way it was written, but you know, it happens. But in a moment of redemption for the sanctity of reading, I read The Nanny by Lana Ferguson. It is a romance, but surprisingly not a sports one. I do enjoy her writing, and I definitely want to read more books from her. The book follows Cassie, former OnlyFans creator, and Aiden, executive chef. Cassie becomes a live-in nanny for Aiden's daughter, Sophie, but then figures out that Aiden was her former anonymous OnlyFans subscriber, one that she actually had feelings for, so yikes. Obviously, there is insane chemistry between them from the beginning, so I'll let you infer what happens. But I highly recommend that you give this book a read. It's very good. I couldn't put it down. I took it to the beach with me all summer. The cover's all bent up from me reading it so much. I gave it a 4-star rating, though. I don't think I've ever given a book a 5-star rating, maybe once or twice, just because I feel like there's always room for improvement. But this book was pretty solid. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll be back with more reviews. Welcome back. Next up, we have Collide by Bal Cabra. I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong. I actually thought this book was really good and was probably my favorite book of the year. The book follows Summer, a psychology student, and Aiden, the captain of the hockey team. Clearly, I have a type in books. They're always going to be hockey, most likely. Summer's advisor assigns her to do her research on the hockey team, and with the threat of not getting into her dream graduate program, Summer has to agree, even though she completely hates hockey. And who might her research subject be? You guessed it, Aiden. The whole research is some sports psychology thing and trying to see how, I don't really remember, something with sports psychology and hockey. That's the premise. So after getting in trouble with his coach, Aiden is forced to partake in her study. The two don't mesh at first. She's definitely more hard-headed for the friendship than he is, but they eventually develop feelings for one another. And this is a book I actually gave 5 stars towards. That's how much I liked it. And now we have reached the second book in Tessa Bailey's Big Shots series, The Au Pair Affair. I would not call these books standalones because reading Fangirl Down definitely helps explain the book, but it's not a direct sequel either. The book follows aspiring marine biologist Tallulah, who just happens to be Josephine's best friend or college roommate or something, and Burgess. You heard it right. His name is Burgess or Burgess. I don't really know, but it's weird. A single dad and hockey player who happens to be friends with Wells. The two meet in the first book. That's why I don't think it's a direct standalone, because you do meet Tallulah and Burgess before Au Pair Affair. Yeah, so they meet through Josephine and Wells, and Tallulah becomes his au pair and takes care of his daughter, Lisa or Lissa. I don't know. There's 2 S's. I don't really know. Tallulah is scared of Burgess at first because he's big, burly, and likes to get into fights, and she has some history. You know, it's a whole thing. But he's insanely attracted to Tallulah, which he thinks might be a problem. And there's a lot of just odd, spicy situations. And again, the writing is just a little weird. I gave it a 3-star rating as well. There is a 3rd book coming out in this series, and part of me just wants to read it because I'm already 2 books into the series at this point. But that one is about a guy who's like fallen in love with his like stepsister or future stepsister. I don't really remember. They set it up in the Au Pair Affair, and I just don't know if I can really get into the whole step-sibling thing. But I feel like I've kind of, committed myself at this point. After the Au Pair Affair, I read the much-awaited 3rd edition to the Maple Hill series, Daydream by Hannah Grace. This book followed Henry, who readers were anxious to learn more about. I love Henry, so I was very excited for this book. And Hallie, his love interest. Hallie becomes Henry's tutor after she meets him at her book club. Henry struggles throughout the book with being named captain, and Hallie struggles with her writing and hectic schedule. The two set up a kind of experience trade-off. Henry's going to give Hallie experiences for a manuscript she wants to write, and she's going to tutor him and help him out that way. And throughout the whole thing, the two promise not to fall in love with each other, but obviously that never works out. But out of this series, this book was my least favorite. It was still very good, though. I love Hannah Grace and her writing, and Icebreaker was iconic. That being said, I did still give the book a 4-star rating, just because it moved a little I don't want to say slower than the other books, but it just wasn't, compared to the first two, this one is definitely, I would rank last, but you know what happens. Finally, the last book I read was Snapshot by Ruby Rana. I read this on Kindle Unlimited, which is something I recently have, so I'm really excited to read more books on there. This book followed Indira, a highly successful attorney, and Landon, a star of the NHL, who recently found himself in some legal drama. And just who is going to take his case? Of course, it's going to be Indy. The only issue, she cannot stand him. They once played on the same youth hockey team, and Indy has hated him since. Or has she? There's insane chemistry between them, so why not take some steam off with a very strict friends with benefits agreement stacked with several rules, of course, because what is any trope without a contract and rules? It was a fun read and was generally written well. There were some parts, but not many. I read it pretty quickly and gave it a 4-star rating because overall it was a pretty solid read. And I think I have its sequel in my Kindle Unlimited library right now, so I'll read that soon. Let's take another break and I will go over my 2025 TBR. Welcome back. Let's get into my 2025 TBR, or to be read. This is just going to be me reading the list to you, and I want to note that many of these books are from a book club I'm a part of this year, so I'm really excited to get to read them if they sound kind of out of my normal reading taste based on my 2024 recap. And I'm also sure that it will continue to grow because I love reading, and when I'm into it, I can read books pretty quickly. So the first book is Yellowface by R.F. Kuang, and then People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. Next is A Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin. I actually got the whole Game of Thrones series for Christmas, so I'm excited to read those. The third, Gilmore Girl by Kelly Bishop. The Guncle by Stephen Rowley, which I am starting to read this week. All the Sinners Bleed by S.A. Crosby. When He Has Wings by Ariel Lawhon. The Berry Pickers by Amanda Peters. The Island of Sea Women by Lisa C. Sea of Tranquility by Emily St. John Mandel. Charm City Rocks by Matthew Norman. The Wren by Anne Enright. How Not to Drown in a Glass of Water. Liliana's Invincible Summer, A Sister's Search for Justice by Christina Rivera Garza. Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. And Ordinary Grace by William Kent Kruger. I'm looking forward to marking these as read and being able to add them to my Goodreads. I love having my friends on Goodreads with me, and they like my reviews, and I like seeing what they want to read and what they are reading, so that's always really fun. Thank you for tuning in to Popping the Tab. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with a friend or leave us a review. I would love to hear what books you enjoyed in 2024 and what books you are hoping to read in 2025. You can reach out to me on poppingthetab_pod on Instagram or leave a comment on this episode. Until next time, keep living, thriving, and being your best selves. Cheers!